Hey, what's up, everybody? Got a brand new tier list for you guys. It's going to be talking about keywords in Destiny, and some of these it's a stretch calling it a keyword, but they recognize it as one, and then there's two they don't. But I think they count more so than some of these. So, anyways, again, just like every other tier list, this is completely just my opinion, but also at the same time, my opinion is an objective fact, so you can't really argue with it. So with that being said, let's just jump into this. Starting off, we have volatile. Is volatile good? No, not really. The damage isn't that great. Volatile rounds is also on here, and I would say volatile rounds is B tier. Volatile rounds has anti-barrier capabilities, which is great, and it applies volatile over and over again, so it's just strictly better. But volatile by itself is meh, unless you're on Titan, and then it's a little bit better because you can spread it rapidly without volatile rounds being a part of it. But yeah, that's all I gotta say about volatile. It's just meh. It's not great. Devour, though, I'll put it in A tier actually. So compared to restoration, you do need to get kills to, have it heal you. But on Warlock, it's even better than the other two classes, because why are you not using Feel the Void? So Devour, it's great. It gives grenade energy. It heals you. It's an amazing keyword. Main thing holding it back is it's not restoration. It's not constant healing through everything. It's, you get a kill, then you get a bump of health. Which, it's just not as good, really, in higher end content. Lower end content, though, fuck. Devour, just slaps, dude. Next up, we got Slow, apparently. So Slow, I'll put an A tier. Counters Overload champions. It builds up to Freeze. Freeze leads to Shatter. Shatter stuns Unstoppables. So the fact that it builds will feed it into a higher ranking, because it just will. Slow also, ruins the aim of PvE combatants. It's annoying in PvP. It does a lot of great things for crowd control, but it leads up to Freeze. So, it's edging. It's just edging the whole time. Okay, next up is Weaken. Yes, this symbol is Weaken. I had to double check. Weaken, S tier. Of course, Tractor Cannon's better, and the Weaken that you get from Tether is technically better, but Weaken by itself, 15% more damage dealt to that target. That's amazing, and it's easy to apply. It's really easy to apply Weaken if you're on a Void subclass, even if you're not really. But yeah, Weaken slaps. I love it. It's great. Feeds into Repulsor Brace really easily. There's a lot to love about Weaken. 15% more damage is, of course, amazing. So, next up, Fire Sprites. Again, pickups are in here, and constructs. So, Fire Sprites, I'll put an A tier. They are one of the better drops. There is one that is definitely better. But I think A tier is fine for Fire Sprites to give you grenade energy. Grenades lead to healing grenades. There's stuff you could do in the Solar subclass to make Fire Sprites even better. So, I feel no remorse putting in A tier. Void Breaches, though, they are worse. They're not great, in my opinion. I'm not a huge fan of Void Breaches. They're way too big on your screen, one, so they, hide shit. Two, it's class ability energy, which is good. It's not that useful on Hunter because dodge is quick enough anyways that it doesn't matter that much. Warlock, it does mean you get more Child of the Old God procs, which is fine. It's great. And then Titan, more Void Overshield because you can plant more shields. So, yeah, it's not bad. It works well with the class because all of them have great aspects for their class ability, but it's just not that useful compared to Fire Sprites specifically. If they had like a fragment that was, there's the one that makes you better at crouching. Get rid of that one, make it void breaches, give you volatile rounds for like 5 seconds. And void breaches would, be way better then. Next we have suppress. I love suppress. Okay, suppression is great. I'm putting in S tier. Might move down to, I'll move it down to A tier. Where it lacks is against your boss tier enemies, but against Lucent Hive, it'll stop them from supering. I'm assumption here. And again, we're not counting the final shape. We don't have frost armor, so I'm not putting it on here. I'm not even going to theorize what it is, because at the moment, we have no clue. At the time of recording this, at least. But, suppress, I assume, is going to stop the attendants, the subjugators, the omens, whatever you want to call them. All the scions and fake rolks. I'm assuming it will stop them from using their abilities. And it makes enemies not shoot you. Suppression is great. I like suppression. And if we're going to fight Lucent Hive more often, and if it'll stop the dread from using their abilities, I think it could go up to S tier, but it's not doing anything against bosses, which will hurt it. Next, we have Stasis Shards. I'll go B tier. Only, they're good. You can make a lot of them, so it's great for elemental charge. And it gives you melee energy, which, with the exception of Titan, pretty solid melees. An instant freeze on Warlock. Hunters get 2 bouncing, slowing projectiles. Titans, I wish that melee was different. It's not great. But, shards also feed into the fragments, but you can only make them with specific aspects, which holds it back. Hopefully we see fragments make them in the future, and they're adding more functionality to those aspects, so maybe they'll be better. But we just don't know. But at the moment, I put them in B. Great for elemental charge builds. I like them a lot on Hunter. Warlock, I don't really use them because I have to use Ice. Ice Flare bolts are great. Bleak Watcher is go-to. So I think B tier is fair for them. They're not bad outright. They just, they don't do enough. So I'll put them in B tier. They do track to you if you use a fragment, though, so there is that. Next up, we have Freeze. I'll put Freeze in S tier. It is the best lockdown CC. Of course, the greatest form of CC is death. Killing things is better than freezing them, but freezing them is pretty close. They're stuck for almost 10 seconds in PvE. It might be over. It might be 12 seconds. But, freeze, it's great. It also leads to shatter, which is more damage. And it's AoE damage. It's not single target. So, could it be better? Sure. But I think it's okay to put it over slow. That one's a tough one. It does lead to more damage. It does freeze enemies completely, so they can't even shoot at you. They can't walk at you. They're stuck. Meaning that, if you're in a pinch and you need enemies to stop moving, if you're on a Warlock, you just slam that fucking melee down. They're frozen. They can't advance. Or Cold Snap or whatever. They're not coming at you anymore. So that's why I'm going to put it in S tier. It's just an immediately, you can't touch me tool, which is great. Stasis Crystals. I'll put them in B tier. They are way better than volatile in my mind. Throwing down a crystal grenade, like a glacier grenade, or using headstone. I would rather use a weapon with headstone on it than destabilizing rounds. Plus, they can technically stop a unstoppable champion. They can stun them, which is great. They deal great damage. They are red barrels, basically. But, I know why a lot of people aren't a huge fan of headstone. And that's fair. And a lot of people aren't huge fans of Stasis Crystals. That's fair. But, I really enjoy my horror story, my Stasis horror story with Demolitionist Headstone because it gives me so much grenade energy to keep spamming more grenades with, say, Renewal Grasp on Hunter, so it's harder for me to die. Enemies deal less damage to my allies, and yeah, it's pretty solid. I like it. Shatter, it's A tier. I would say Shatter is worse than Freeze. Stuns Unstoppables, that's great. Does damage, that's great. But it builds to nothing, which is like Stasis' whole thing. It is the end point, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. A lot of slow, I'm giving it credit for, is that it builds up to Freeze. And then Shatter ends Freeze. Like if you shatter something, if it doesn't die, it's unfrozen. So you got to slow it down or freeze it again. So it has that issue. Freeze is the only one that doesn't stop champions, except it does. It stops every form of champion. So if you know how to use Freeze and Stasis correctly, the Freeze keyword is kind of broken against champions. You just got to know how it works and how to use it. It's amazing against anti-barriers. Or barrier champs, whatever you want to call them. Tangles. I'd say they're better than Fire Sprites. I put them in top of A. Into the Fray really helps them out. Like, Into the Fray is a great aspect. Slapping your Tangle down on the ground, giving you Woven Mail, broken. That's so good. You can grapple to them. What else can you do with them? You can suspend using them. They deal damage. I would like to see Elemental Orbs come back, like from Season of the Witch. Them come back as armor mods. And they could further buff Tangles that way. I think that would be an interesting thing to see. So here we have Void Overshield. I'm going to put him in D tier. Like, he's just not good. Technically, it has less damage resistance than Woven Mail, but Woven Mail doesn't guard your head. But Void Overshield is just kind of worse. Like, it should be a 75% damage reduction instead of, like, 40 or 50, whatever it is now. It's not enough. It is not worth speccing into. Void Titan is held back by this keyword. They focus on Volatile and Void Overshield. Like, every Void class focuses on two things. For Warlocks, it's Devour and Weaken. Hunters, it's Invis and Suppress. Titans get the two worst keywords on Void. It is ridiculous. Like, Void Overshield is genuinely not good. I think there's one or two F tier keywords. Void Overshield is better than that. Like, you got no backup plans, which makes it better. Like, goof around, haha, funny, Acreus bullshit. And it does give you some survivability because it's damage resistance plus extra health. But it's just not good. It's not that it's hard to proc or anything. It's just not that good. I hope they have ways of buffing up Void Overshield in the future, but it's just not it right now. Threadlings, B tier, bro. Like, they're really funny on Strand Warlock with Swarmers. They unravel. They do a lot of funny things. But, man, they're not great. You know what I mean? Like, it's free damage sometimes. Like this season, extremely free damage. You unravel an enemy, they drop Threadlings. Free damage. But generally speaking, it's just not it. For being honest, Threadlings don't deal that much damage, and Hatchling, as a perk that makes Threadlings, it's not great. It only ever makes one, right? Even on higher level targets, I think. If it made more Threadlings on like higher tier enemies, that would help it a little bit. Or debuffed enemies, maybe both, But yeah, Threadlings, they're in a way better spot now than they were on launch, but they're still not great, Like, they could deal a little bit more damage and not be broken. But it's a fine line. They're easy to break, and I think you could exponentially raise that damage if PvE combatants would aim at them. Like, oh, there's a swarm of threadlings coming at me. I'm a hive boomer knight. Boom. They're all gone. Like, if that was a thing that happened, they could deal a lot more damage. But I understand why they deal the damage they do and why it's not great. Next up, Unravel. It's B tier. Like, you know, it's free damage. It's fine. If you stop shooting an enemy for long enough, it drops off. But like if you keep shooting them, it stays there. You know, it's not bad. I like Unravel, it's fine. But once it's applied, there's really no reason to keep speccing into it on a single enemy. Unraveling rounds we'll talk about in a minute, because it's a separate thing. But yeah, Unravel, it's better than Volatile in my eyes. It also spreads like by itself, which is great. But yeah, I think B tier is perfectly fine for Unraveling rounds. Sever, S tier. Highly slept on. Honestly, don't know why they buffed it as much as they did in Season of the Deep. This thing was nuts already. Okay? Enemies that are severed deal less damage. Just on its face, that's really good. Okay? That's all it needs to do. Sever, you got me. You know, I love that shit. Next up, we got Amplified. Guys, I need to make a new tier. Oh no. This one is F. What color do we want to make it, boys? We're going to make it blue because it's pretty much going to be amplified in here. Amplified is bad. Like, technically, while you're sprinting, I think you get a 15% damage reduction, which is really low, and you have to be sprinting, so you can't shoot, like, when you have the damage resistance. It gives you speed booster, which is fun. Not that useful. If Amplified did a few other things, it would be good, but it just... You run faster. I think you slide farther. Like, it's basically mobility. It is the mobility stat as a keyword. And that's not great. You know? Jolt, though. Jolt's solid. I think I'll put an S tier. It makes enemies take more damage. Once they take a certain threshold of damage, they shock nearby enemies. Jolt, put some respect on it. It's great ad clear, too. It's great ad clear. It turns champions or bosses into a serious threat for their allies. Like, you jolt the big guy, and then any little thrall or fucking shank that goes near them is like, hey, boss. Boom. They're gone. They're dead. They never existed. Not even an afterthought form, okay? Jolt's solid. I'm fine with playing in an S tier. It adds damage to the field in a very passive way that's very good. And Ionic Traces are like the best pickup in the game. Oh yeah, also Jolt stopped overloads. Just got to put that out there. Fuck overloads, right? Ionic Traces, though, they're the best pickup, bar none. They give energy to all of your abilities. They are easy to make. They track to you no matter what. You don't need the fucking boots mod. You don't need a fragment in your subclass. They just do it. Like, and they have more exotics that make them than any other pickup. Like, Fire Sprites have one exotic, I think. Dragon's Breath is the only one, I'm pretty sure. Stasis Shards, you got fucking Wicked Implement. I think that's the only one that makes them. Tangles, you got like one or two exotics. Ionic Traces, you got a few. So, yeah, Ionic Traces, they up, you know? They're great. Unraveling rounds, I'll give it A tier. It's better than normal unraveling because it can stop anti-barrier champions. Problem it runs into is if a whole room is already unraveled, it doesn't do anything. You know? You get what I mean? It just doesn't do anything after a while. Actually, I just had a thought here. Okay, I'm actually going to move Jolt down to top of A. Because I want to put Blind in S. And I think Blind is better than Jolt. Blind will... It's like Freeze, but it doesn't numb your damage. It also itself is anti-champion. You know, it stops unstoppables, which similar to Freeze. Freeze leads to Shatter. Shatter stuns unstops. But Blind is so good. What am I on about? Yeah, no, Freeze is better than Blind. Switching it back. Never mind about all that rant. Blind's going in A tier. It's very good. Top of A tier, probably. It's pseudo freeze. I would say it's more of a pseudo freeze than Suspend is. Okay? Just because it's, you know, I really like Blind. I wish it was implemented more into the subclasses, but I understand why it's not. It's very good, but, you know, Jolt's the more like in-your-face, aggressive, fast-paced movement of Arc, and Blind is just like, you can slow down a little bit. These guys, they'll be waiting for you. Which, you know, it doesn't spit in the face of what Arc is. I think it's a more fast-paced way to freeze or suspend. But, you know, you get what I mean. Like, there's a reason why Blind isn't used as heavily as Jolt is in Arc subclasses. Invisibility, that's an S tier, bro. They can't see you. That's it. Like, it's invisibility. They can't see you. Scorch, I'll go A tier. I would say it's better than Unravel and Volatile Easy. Scorch is another build-up like Slow, which leads to Ignitions. Ignitions lead to stunning Unstoppables and dealing heavy damage. Scorch itself does damage, which is great. So I think Scorch being A tier is fine. It's pretty good. I wouldn't say it's as good as Slow by itself, though. Definitely not. Slow is like actually kind of goated. Woven Mail. That's an S tier, baby. Bro, that shit's so good. Like, Woven Mail, let's be honest. Woven Mail, one of the best keywords in the game that they've ever seen. Like, oh no, headshots deal the same amount of damage, but you get like 65% damage resistance against everything else. Like, you know, it's good. It's really good. Suspend, it's worse Freeze. It stuns Unstoppable, sure. Freeze kind of does. Freeze does. It stops them. Shatter stuns them. But how do you shatter things? You stop them from being frozen. You know? Whereas Suspend, you suspend them, they're stunned. It also stuns the other two champion types. So there's that. You know, it's just like Freeze in that capacity, except it doesn't lead to extra damage, and it doesn't last as long as Freeze. So I'm fine with putting Suspend in A. It would have been like S or S plus on launch, though. Ignition, that's kind of S tier, man. Ignitions are nice. Stuns Unstoppables. It does a lot of damage. I'm putting it at top of A. What am I talking about? Sorry. Not above Blind, though. You know what? We're moving Scorch down to B. But I'm putting it ahead of Unravel and behind Volatile Rounds. Because Ignition is an S. Let's be real. I wouldn't say they're even on the same tier. I would say Ignitions are definitely better. They stun Unstoppables. Pretty decent radius with a lot of damage. And if you configure it right, those Ignitions are going to spread Scorch to nearby enemies. Add more Scorch to those enemies. They build up to Ignitions, and you keep repeating the process. Ignitions are nice. Like, they're a little nutty. Next up, we have Radiant. Radiant, that's an S tier. like, boys. If you want to argue about Radiant being S tier, you need to get out, okay? Because Radiant, it's 25% damage boost to all weapons. That's great. Just on its face, right there, done. But also, it gives weapons that don't already have a champion counter, it gives them anti-barrier. Like, it's the best keyword for anti-barriers because it just works. It doesn't matter if it's void. It doesn't matter if it's a strand weapon. It's a weapon. It can take care of a barrier. You're radiant, and it does extra damage. Let's fucking go. You know, it's not volatile where you have to wait for the fucking cooldown. So Retrofit Escapade's fucking ass now. So is Wave Splitter. Like, they're not broken anymore because volatile rounds got a nerf. You know, it didn't. Radiant. Radiant got a buff. Stupid. Unraveling rounds, you know, it's good, but once the whole room is unraveled, it doesn't matter as much anymore. Radiant, it's there for you, man. It's extra 25% damage until the timer's out. And you can keep the timer rolling. This shit's nice. Radiant is so good. Moving on to Restoration. Boy, howdy, we got another S tier solar keyword, boys. Come on. This shit's so nice. You know, it's better Devour. Sure, it doesn't give you ability energy, but you don't need a kill for it to heal you. It's just the timer. It's just constantly healing you. And if you get kills, it extends that timer, depending on your loadout. But you should rock it that way. So, what's an issue with Restoration? Oh, it got nerfed. Not enough to make it bad. Like, it's still S tier. You know how many times Restoration has saved my life? Restoration is more dependable than Banner of War. And that shit's broken, okay? Like, it's not pulsating healing. It's, ooh, you know, it's a constant heal. Bro, Restoration is nuts, okay? It's S tier. It's way up there. Very good survivability. Even better if you can pair it with Woven Mail, or you can pair it with Void Overshield. It makes Void Overshield actually good, okay? But yeah, Restoration's great. I love Restoration. Cure, I'll put it slightly under. Same problem as Devour. It's only a bump of health, but usually the ways you get it is way easier to do than Devour. So, you know, it's not, oh, you have to get a kill with an ability. You just fucking shit. Oh, I'm cured. You know? Cure's nice. And you usually share it with your allies. Devour, it's selfish, okay? I love it, but it's selfish, you know? Generally speaking. So, yeah, this is my keyword tier list. Again, completely my opinion, so you know it's got to be true and absolutely factual. I'm fucking moving Threadlings and Tangles down, actually. That's my tier list. But, I'm also moving Crystals down. Yeah, a lot of it's going to be top heavy because keywords are what make you strong in the game. So it's a goofy tier list to make because there's only two that I would say are genuinely bad. The rest are like maybe like, you know, they're mid. They're mid. But genuinely bad, I would say there's two, and then you could argue a few others. But yeah, if I forgot a keyword or a pickup, let me know. I didn't count things like Child of the Old Gods, Whirling Maelstrom, Banner of War, those like super specific things that are only on one class, because they're not keywords, they're not shared. They're just aspects. They're unique things, you know? But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, this tier list, and do all that normal, boring YouTube stuff of liking, commenting, and subscribing, and I'll see you next time.